Picture a desert at the edge of time, where the Nile whispers secrets no one was meant to hear. The year is 2400 BCE, and the ancient Egyptians carve a truth so shocking it's been buried for millennia. This isn't about pyramids or mummies. This is about a civilization built on a forbidden act of creation, a truth so raw it would shatter your view of history. You're about to uncover the real ancient Egypt, not the sanitized version in textbooks, but a world where life itself was worshipped in ways that would make modern minds recoil. Stay with me, because once you hear this, you'll never see the past the same way again. They called it the Heliopolitan myth, the story of how everything began. Not with a word, not with a war, but with a solitary act of divine power. In the void of chaos, before time, before gods, there was Adam, alone, floating in the primordial waters of none. No light, no land, no life, just him. And what did he do? He created himself. Not through magic or miracles, but through an act so primal it's carved in hieroglyphs across their temples. Adam, the first god, brought existence into being through self-generation, a solitary act of creation that birthed the universe. This wasn't myth, it was their truth, the cornerstone of a civilization that ruled for 3,000 years. You're thinking this sounds strange, maybe even crude, but to the Egyptians it was sacred. The pyramid texts, etched in stone as early as 2400 BCE, spell it out in unflinching detail. Adam, they wrote, took his power in hand, and from that act came Shu, the god of air, and Tefnut, the goddess of moisture. From them, the world unfolded: gods, humans, the Nile itself. This wasn't hidden in secret scrolls. It was taught in temples, celebrated in rituals, displayed on walls where millions still walk today. The Temple of Karnak, a tourist trap now, holds reliefs of Adam's act, unapologetic, unashamed. They saw creation not as sin, but as the spark of existence, the divine force that made everything possible. This wasn't just theology, it was a worldview that shaped every facet of their lives. While other cultures buried their origins in shame or violence, the Egyptians exalted life's raw power. The Nile's annual flood, the lifeblood of their civilization, was seen as Adam's creative force reborn, fertilizing the land. Priests performed rituals mimicking his act to ensure the floods came, to keep Egypt alive. The Turin Papyrus, uncovered in 2007, reveals instructions for these rites. Priests chanting hymns, reenacting creation itself. This wasn't fringe. It was mainstream, woven into the fabric of their society. Women, revered as vessels of this divine power, bore titles like God's Hand, a nod to Adam's act. Queen Hatshepsut, a ruler who defied empires, claimed this title proudly, her temple proclaiming her role in the cosmic order. Why does this matter? Because this truth was suppressed. Victorian scholars, clutching their pearls, refused to translate these texts, hiding them in Latin or leaving them in hieroglyphs. Museums still shy away, guiding tourists past the embarrassing reliefs. But the Egyptians didn't blush. They carved their truth in stone, unafraid, while we've spent centuries sanitizing it. This is the first step into a forbidden history, a world where creation was power, not shame. You're not just hearing a story, you're awakening to a truth they didn't want you to know. Stick with me, because this is only the beginning. The next revelation takes you deeper, into the rituals and festivals that made Egypt's obsession with life a public spectacle. Are you ready to face what's been hidden? Let's go further. You've just stepped into a world where creation isn't whispered in shame but carved in stone for all to see. Ancient Egypt didn't hide its truths. It celebrated them, louder than you can imagine. Picture a city alive with thousands, their voices rising under a blazing sun, carrying statues of a god so bold he'd make modern festivals look tame. This is the story of Min, the fertility deity who embodied life's unapologetic power, and the rituals that shocked the world. You're not just hearing history, you're uncovering a truth so raw it was buried by those too afraid to face it. Stay with me, because this descent is about to get wilder. Min wasn't a minor god tucked away in forgotten shrines. He was a titan of ancient Egypt, worshipped for 6,000 years as the pulse of life itself. His image, unmistakable, unashamed, stood in every temple, every home, painted black to mirror the Nile's fertile soil. The Festival of Min, held during the harvest season, wasn't a quiet ceremony. It was a riot of life, a public celebration of creation that drew entire cities. Imagine processions flooding the streets, priests carrying towering statues of Min, his form a blatant symbol of masculine power. Women danced, offering lettuce. Yes, lettuce. Its milky sap a sacred nod to fertility. This wasn't scandal. This was religion as vital as the Nile's flood. The Greeks and Romans, hardened by their own gods, were stunned. Herodotus, writing in 450 BCE, could barely describe what he saw, his words dripping with shock. The rites of this god defy my pen, though my eyes cannot deny them. Plutarch blushed at women venerating Min's statues, their gestures a prayer for life. These weren't secret rites, they were public, proud, etched into the temple of Dendra's walls, where a chapel honors the first time, the moment of creation. The colossal statue of Min at Coptos, unearthed in 1894, stood over 20 feet tall, its details so explicit Victorian excavators tried to chisel them away. They failed, and Min's truth endures unbowed. Why lettuce? Sounds absurd, but to the Egyptians it was profound. The plant's white sap, spilling when cut, mirrored the life-giving force they revered. Priests offered it in heaps during Min's festivals, not to eat, but to honor the god who ensured crops grew and children were born. The Brooklyn Museum holds a statue of a priest kneeling before Min, his hands raised in reverence. In 1998, archaeologists found a Luxor chamber filled with Min figurines, coated in ritual oils, proof these weren't myths but lived practices. Every Egyptian home had a Min shrine, his amulets worn by children for protection. The Cairo Museum's 10,000 Minutes charms show how deeply this worship ran. This wasn't just religion, it was survival. Egypt's existence hinged on the Nile's flood, on the fertility of land and people. Min's festivals, timed with planting and harvest, weren't parties. They were cosmic bargains to keep the cycle of life turning. Temple records show birth rates spiked 9 months after these celebrations, proof the gods, or at least their rituals, delivered. While other cultures shrouded fertility in taboo, Egypt paraded it. Their hieroglyph for virility was Min's symbol, their word for fertility tied to his sacred lettuce. Even their obelisks, now scattered across the world, were tributes to this regenerative power, though tour guides won't tell you that. This truth was too much for later eyes. Victorian scholars hid Min's statues in museum basements, their reports sanitized. Napoleon's soldiers gaped at rural Min festivals in 1798, their journals calling them savage. But the Egyptians saw divinity where we see shock. You're starting to see it, aren't you? A world where life was sacred, not shameful. The next step is darker, deeper, into the royal bloodlines and marriages that make Min's worship look tame. What secrets did the pharaohs guard? Stay with me because the truth is only getting sharper. You've seen how ancient Egypt worshipped life itself, carving creation into their temples and parading fertility through their streets. But now we're diving deeper, into a truth so shocking it makes Min's festivals look tame. This is about the pharaohs, the living gods who ruled for 3,000 years, and the unthinkable lengths they went to keep their blood divine. Forget European royalty marrying cousins. This is a story of siblings, daughters, and a divine plan that defies everything you've been taught. You're not just learning history, you're uncovering a secret that changes how you see power forever. Stay with me because this is where the forbidden gets real. In ancient Egypt, the pharaoh wasn't just a king. He was a god on earth, the bridge between humanity and the divine. His blood had to be pure, untainted, a direct line to the gods. How did they ensure this? By marrying within the family, sisters, daughters, sometimes both. This wasn't a scandal whispered in shadows. It was a sacred duty, carved on temple walls, celebrated in royal decrees. The myth of Isis and Osiris, Egypt's most revered story, set the precedent. A brother and sister whose love created order from chaos. The pharaohs followed suit, binding their bloodlines to mirror the gods, ensuring their rule was divine, untouchable. Take Tutankhamun, the boy king, DNA tests in 2010 revealed his parents were full siblings, his grandparents the same. His body bore the scars of this practice: clubfoot, scoliosis, a frail frame that needed a cane at 19. Yet his tomb inscriptions proudly declared his mother, his sister, his wife. The 18th dynasty was no exception. Amenhotep III married his daughter, Sidamen, who bore his children. Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh, wed his daughters, one of whom became Tutankhamun's sister wife. These weren't secrets. They were etched in stone. The title king's sister, king's wife, a badge of honor. Imagine that today. A leader proclaiming their sibling marriage on public monuments. The world would erupt, but Egypt celebrated it as divine. Why? Because their worldview wasn't ours. The Egyptians saw the royal bloodline as a sacred vessel, carrying the spark of creation from Adam himself. Marrying within the family wasn't just tradition. It was cosmic law, ensuring the pharaoh's divinity flowed unbroken. The Ptolemies, like Cleopatra, took it further, marrying brothers for 300 years. Cleopatra wed two of her brothers, Ptolemy 13 and 14. Her family tree a tangled web of sibling unions. Genetic tests on Ptolemaic mummies show the cost: shortened lifespans, birth defects, infertility that ended their dynasty. Yet their inscriptions never wavered, calling these unions divine love, a mirror of Isis and Osiris. This wasn't reckless, it was calculated. The pharaoh's divine status justified absolute power, and sibling marriage reinforced it, keeping wealth and authority within the family. The people didn't revolt. They worshipped. Royal Stele, like one from Amenhotep II's reign, boasted of his sister wife with reverence. His heart was filled with love for her, and she was his great royal wife. The Temple of Luxor displays reliefs of these unions, public and proud. Victorian scholars, horrified, censored these truths, translating sister as beloved to soften the blow. But the hieroglyphs don't lie. Egypt embraced what we call taboo. This truth shakes you, doesn't it? A civilization built on practices we'd condemn, yet it thrived for millennia. They saw divinity where we see scandal, power where we see shame. You're holding a secret now, one the history books tried to bury. The next step takes you into the lives of Egyptian women, who wielded freedoms and knowledge lost for centuries. What did they know that we've forgotten? Stay with me, because the rabbit hole is deeper than you think, and the truth is only getting sharper. You've uncovered the raw truths of Egypt's creation myth, its brazen fertility festivals, and the pharaoh's divine marriages. But now we're diving into a secret so profound it rewrites what you thought you knew about ancient women. Forget the myths of oppressed maidens in dusty history. Ancient Egyptian women wielded power, knowledge, and freedoms that vanished for millennia after their empire fell. This isn't just a story of the past. It's a revelation of a society that saw women as divine forces, not shadows. You're holding forbidden knowledge now, the kind that changes how you see the world. Stay with me, because this truth cuts deeper than you expect. In ancient Egypt, women weren't just participants in life, they were its sacred architects. While Greek philosophers dismissed women as passive vessels, Egyptians revered them as echoes of creation itself, tied to Adam's primal act and Min's fertile power. Women held rights that would shock the ancient world and baffle modern minds. They could own property, initiate divorces, run businesses, and testify in court. Freedoms that Europe wouldn't see until the 19th century. The Kahan Papyrus, dated to 1800 BCE, reveals women as doctors, midwives, and scholars. Their knowledge of the body so advanced it rivaled modern medicine. They understood anatomy, conception, and even contraception, using methods like honey and acacia gum that science later proved effective. This wasn't fringe knowledge, it was mainstream, woven into the fabric of their society. Women served as high priestesses, bearing titles like God's Hand, a direct link to Adam's creation. Queen Hatshepsut, who ruled as pharaoh in the 15th century BCE, wasn't an anomaly. She was a testament to this system. Her mortuary temple boasts her divine titles, her rule unchallenged by her gender. Women like her managed estates, led rituals, and advised kings, their voices carrying weight in a world that saw them as divine. The Temple of Dendra's reliefs show women performing sacred rites alongside men, their roles equal in the eyes of the gods. The most astonishing truth? Their medical knowledge. The Ebers Papyrus from 1550 BCE details treatments for fertility, childbirth, and women's health, written with a precision that stunned Egyptologists. Egyptian women used pessaries and herbal remedies, some still viable today, to control conception or ensure healthy births. They knew the signs of pregnancy before modern tests existed, diagnosing it through barley germination, a method confirmed by 20th-century science. This wasn't superstition. It was expertise, rooted in a culture that saw life's creation as sacred. While Mesopotamia and Greece shrouded women's bodies in mystery, Egypt studied them, celebrated them, and empowered women to master them. Why was this buried? Victorian scholars, bound by their own biases, couldn't handle it. They sanitized translations, hid papyri, and dismissed women's roles as exotic. A. Wallace Budge, a leading Egyptologist, left explicit medical texts in Latin, deeming them unfit for public eyes. Museums tucked away artifacts showing women's power, favoring tales of male pharaohs. Even today, tour guides gloss over these truths, focusing on gold and tombs. But the hieroglyphs don't lie. Egyptian women were a force, their knowledge a threat to those who wanted history neat and patriarchal. This changes you, doesn't it? A civilization that thrived for 3,000 years by empowering half its people, only to have that truth erased by later ages. You're seeing the world through new eyes now, questioning what else was hidden. In the comments, type "break the veil" twice. Let it be your vow to see through the lies, to carry this knowledge forward. Hit subscribe and ring the bell, because the next step takes you to the monuments that hid these truths in plain sight. What secrets do the pyramids and obelisks hold? The descent continues, and the truth is sharper than ever. Let's go deeper. You've uncovered a world where creation was divine, where fertility was worshipped, where pharaohs married siblings to mirror the gods, and women held power that history tried to erase. Now, we're standing before Egypt's greatest monuments: pyramids, obelisks, temples. Not as tourist traps, but as coded messages of a truth so potent it's been hidden in plain sight. These aren't just stones. They're declarations of a civilization's soul, carved with secrets you were never meant to understand. You're deeper in the rabbit hole now, holding knowledge that shifts reality itself. Stay with me, because this revelation will change how you see every monument forever. The pyramids of Giza, towering under a relentless sun, aren't just tombs. They're cosmic engines built to channel creation's power. The Egyptians believed the pharaoh's soul, his Ka, merged with the gods in death, ensuring the cycle of life continued. Each pyramid's shape, a perfect ascent to the heavens, mimicked the primeval mound, the first land rising from Adam's chaotic waters. The pyramid texts, etched inside, don't just praise kings. They describe their rebirth, their bodies rising like Adam's act of self-generation, sparking new life in the cosmos. This wasn't burial. It was resurrection, a sacred echo of creation itself. Obelisks, those needle-like spires now stolen to cities worldwide, are even bolder. They're not just pretty stones. They're symbols of men's regenerative power, standing erect as tributes to fertility and divine strength. The hieroglyphs on their sides, like those at Karnak, link them to the sun god Ra, whose rays were life itself, fertilizing the earth like the Nile's flood. Every obelisk was a prayer in stone, ensuring Egypt's survival through creation's unending cycle. When you see one in London or New York, know it's a silent hymn to a god most tour guides won't name. Temples, like Luxor and Dendra, were the heartbeat of this truth. Their walls don't just tell stories, they're manuals for existence. Reliefs show Adam creating the world, men blessing the harvest, pharaohs uniting with sister-wives to preserve divine blood. The Temple of Dendra's Creation Chapel, open to worshippers, depicts the first time, the moment Adam sparked life. These weren't hidden rooms, they were public, meant to remind every Egyptian that creation was their faith's core. The hypostyle halls, with columns shaped like lotus stalks, symbolized life rising from chaos. Every pillar a nod to men's fertile power. Why does this matter? Because these monuments weren't art. They were propaganda for a worldview we've been taught to misunderstand. The Egyptians didn't see creation as crude. They saw it as divine. Their architecture a testament to a truth they lived every day. Victorian scholars, unnerved by these symbols, called them pagan and buried their meaning. Museums display pyramids as engineering marvels, obelisks as decor, ignoring the hieroglyphs that scream their purpose. In 2019, a dig at Abydos found a temple brewery, with Min symbols on every jar, brewing ritual beer to fuel fertility festivals. This wasn't abstract. It was practical. A civilization built on life's raw force. You're seeing it now, aren't you? A world where every stone, every carving, was a defiance of shame, a celebration of existence. These monuments were Egypt's way of shouting their truth to eternity, and we've spent centuries looking away. In the comments, type "break the veil" twice. Let it mark your refusal to stay blind, your oath to carry this knowledge. Hit subscribe and ring the bell, because the next step pulls you into the psychological grip of this system. How did Egypt control its people's minds? What kept this truth alive for millennia? The descent isn't over, and the truth is sharper than ever. Let's keep going. You've walked through a world where creation was divine. Fertility was worshipped. Pharaohs married siblings to mirror gods. Women wielded unmatched power, and monuments screamed truths we've been taught to ignore. But how did ancient Egypt make an entire civilization not just accept but embrace these ideas for 3 millennia? This isn't just history. It's a masterclass in control. A system that shaped minds, silenced doubt, and turned belief into unbreakable loyalty. You're holding a dangerous truth now, one that reveals how power bends the human soul. Stay with me, because this descent into Egypt's psychological grip will change how you see control forever. The Egyptians didn't rule by force alone, they ruled by belief. Their creation myth, Adam's primal act, wasn't just a story. It was a psychological anchor, taught in temples, carved on walls, and woven into daily life. Every child grew up hearing how life began with a god's solitary power, making creation not just sacred but the foundation of existence. The Festival of Min, with its public displays of fertility, wasn't a party. It was a ritual that bound communities, making every participant feel part of the divine cycle. Priests didn't just lead. They performed, reenacting Adam's act in sacred rites, their chants echoing in the minds of worshippers. The Turin Papyrus, uncovered in 2007, shows priests mimicking creation to ensure the Nile's flood, tying the people's survival to their faith. This wasn't accidental. It was engineered. Temples like Karnak and Luxor were designed to overwhelm. Their towering columns, shaped like lotus flowers, symbolized life rising from chaos. Every carving a reminder of Adam, and Min worshippers entered these spaces, dwarfed by stone, surrounded by reliefs of divine creation and royal marriages. The message was clear. This is your world, your gods, your truth. Descent wasn't crushed, it was unthinkable. The hieroglyphs for order and truth were the same. Ma'at, the cosmic balance the pharaoh upheld. To question the system was to question reality itself. A psychological trap that kept Egypt loyal for centuries. Women's roles amplified this control, as God's hand. Priestesses like Hatshepsut linked the divine to the mortal, their authority reinforcing the system's sanctity. The Kahan Papyrus shows women teaching others about conception and health, their knowledge a public trust that bound communities. When women danced at Min's festivals, offering lettuce or venerating statues, they weren't just worshipping, they were enacting Ma'at, ensuring life's continuity. This wasn't coercion, it was identity. Every Egyptian, from farmer to pharaoh, saw themselves as part of a divine machine, their actions echoing the gods. The Nile itself was the ultimate enforcer. Its annual flood, tied to Adam's creative force, wasn't just water. It was proof the gods delivered. Temple records show priests timing rituals to the flood's arrival, making the people believe their faith kept Egypt alive. When birth rates rose after Min's festivals, it wasn't chance, it was evidence the system worked. The 2019 Abydos brewery find, with Min's symbols on every jar, proves they brewed ritual beer to fuel these beliefs, intoxicating the masses into compliance. This was control disguised as celebration, a system so seamless it felt like freedom. Why was this hidden? Because later empires, Greek, Roman, Victorian, couldn't fathom a society that thrived on such truths. They buried the papyri, sanitized the reliefs, and called Egypt pagan. But you see it now, don't you? A civilization that ruled minds by making life itself divine. In the comments, type "break the veil" twice. Let it be your rebellion against the silence, your claim to this forbidden truth. Hit subscribe and ring the bell, because the next step reveals how this system shaped Egypt's science. What did their doctors know that we've lost? The descent continues, sharper than ever. Let's keep going. You've journeyed through a civilization that worshipped creation as divine, paraded fertility in the streets, bound pharaohs to their sisters, empowered women with unmatched freedoms, built monuments as hymns to life, and controlled minds with a seamless system of belief. But now, we're plunging into a truth so startling it was buried for centuries. Ancient Egypt's scientific prowess, born from their obsession with life's origins, outstripped the world for millennia. Their doctors knew secrets of the human body that modern medicine only rediscovered thousands of years later. This isn't just history. It's a forbidden archive of knowledge that threatens the stories we've been fed. Stay with me because this revelation will rewrite what you think science can be. The Egyptians didn't just pray to Adam and Min. They studied life with a precision that defies our assumptions. The Ebers Papyrus, from 1550 BCE, isn't a spellbook. It's a medical encyclopedia, detailing over 700 treatments, many for reproduction and health. They understood the body's rhythms, using herbs like acacia and honey for contraception methods science confirmed effective in the 20th century. The Kahan Papyrus, older still, describes fertility tests. Women urinated on barley seeds, and if they sprouted, pregnancy was confirmed. Modern studies verified this method's accuracy, stunning researchers. While Greece debated philosophy, Egypt was practicing medicine, their knowledge rooted in a worldview that saw creation as sacred, not shameful. Priests and midwives, often women, weren't guessing. They were scientists, their temples doubling as laboratories. This wasn't superstition, it was expertise. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, from 1600 BCE, outlines surgical techniques for wounds and fractures, with clinical precision that rivals modern trauma guides. They set bones, stitched flesh, and treated infections with moldy bread, penicillin's ancestor, centuries before Europe stumbled on antibiotics. Their understanding of conception came from studying the Nile cycles, linking human fertility to the lands. The 2019 Abydos brewery find, with Min symbols on jars, wasn't just for rituals. Chemical analysis revealed herbs that boosted vitality, brewed for festivals to enhance fertility. This was a civilization that turned faith into science, their doctors blending divine reverence with practical genius. Women, as God's hand, led this charge, their medical texts carved with the same care as temple reliefs. Why was this knowledge erased? Because it didn't fit the narrative of later empires. Greeks mocked Egyptian superstition. Romans called it pagan, and Victorian scholars, horrified by its frankness, hid papyri in museum vaults. A Wallace Budge, a titan of Egyptology, left medical texts untranslated, deeming them indecent. The Kahan Papyrus sat mislabeled for decades, its secrets locked away. Even today, museums showcase mummies and gold, not the texts that prove Egypt's scientific lead. This wasn't ignorance, it was deliberate, a campaign to bury a truth too bold for patriarchal histories. The Egyptians knew life's mechanics in ways that threatened the sanitized stories of progress we're taught. You feel it now, don't you? A civilization that mastered science through faith, only to be silenced by those who couldn't face its truths. You're holding a spark of that knowledge, a challenge to the lies that shape our world. In the comments, type "break the veil" twice. Let it be your oath to reject the cover-up, to carry this truth forward. Hit subscribe and ring the bell, because the next step uncovers how Egypt's enemies twisted its legacy. Who buried these truths and why? The descent is far from over, and the truth cuts deeper than ever. Let's keep going. You've uncovered a civilization that worshipped creation as divine, celebrated fertility in the streets, bound pharaohs to their sisters, empowered women with unmatched freedoms, built monuments as hymns to life, controlled minds with belief, and mastered science through faith. But now, we're staring into the shadows of a cover-up so vast it spans centuries. The truths of ancient Egypt, its raw, unapologetic embrace of life, were buried not by time, but by those who couldn't bear their power. Greeks, Romans, and Victorian scholars twisted Egypt's legacy, sanitizing its story to fit their own control systems. You're holding a dangerous secret now, one that exposes the hands that rewrite history. Stay with me, because this truth will shake your trust in what you've been taught. The Greeks were the first to muddy the waters. When Herodotus visited Egypt in 450 BCE, he saw men's festivals and Pharaohs' sibling marriages, his pen faltering as he wrote of rites too shocking to describe. His accounts, meant to inform, framed Egypt as exotic, barbaric, a curiosity for Greek readers. Plato and his peers, obsessed with abstract philosophy, dismissed Egypt's biological focus as primitive, ignoring its scientific precision. They praised the pyramids but ignored their meaning, calling Egypt's religion superstition, while borrowing its geometry for their own academies. This wasn't misunderstanding, it was a deliberate choice to elevate Greek ideals over a rival culture's truths, setting the stage for a narrative that diminished Egypt's genius. The Romans took it further. Conquering Egypt in 30 BCE, they saw a civilization that defied their gods and their shame-based morality. Temples to Min, with their bold reliefs, were defaced or repurposed. Cleopatra, a Ptolemaic queen who embodied Egypt's divine bloodlines, was recast as a seductress, her sibling marriages mocked as decadence. Roman writers like Plutarch described Min's worship with horror, their words dripping with judgment. Acts that would make Jupiter blush. They didn't just conquer Egypt's land. They conquered its story, painting it as a fallen empire of excess to justify their rule. The hieroglyphs, still proclaiming Adam's creation and women's power, were left to erode, their truths too raw for Rome's rigid order. Victorian scholars delivered the final blow. In the 19th century, as Egyptology boomed, men like E. A. Wallace Budge faced papyri like Cahen and Ebers, detailing contraception, fertility tests, and creation rituals. They recoiled, calling them indecent. Budge translated explicit texts into Latin or left them in hieroglyphs, hiding them from public view. Min's statues, like the 20-foot Colossus at Coptos, were tucked into museum basements, their fertility symbols deemed unfit for display. The 2007 Turin Papyrus, revealing priests' creation rites, was mislabeled for decades, its secrets locked away. This wasn't oversight, it was censorship, a deliberate effort to align Egypt with Victorian values, erasing its radical worldview to fit a patriarchal, prudish narrative. Why does this matter? Because the suppression of Egypt's truths reveals a pattern. Those in power rewrite history to control the present. The Greeks, Romans, and Victorians didn't just misunderstand Egypt. They feared its ideas, its celebration of life over shame, its empowerment of women, its fusion of faith and science. By burying its papyri, defacing its statues, and sanitizing its story, they ensured we'd see Egypt as a curiosity, not a challenge to modern systems. You're seeing through their lies now, aren't you? A civilization's truth, silenced to protect fragile egos. In the comments, type "break the veil" twice. Let it be your defiance of their cover-up, your claim to this hidden knowledge. Hit subscribe and ring the bell, because the next step reveals how Egypt's legacy survived despite the erasure. How did its truths endure? The descent continues, and the truth is sharper than ever. Let's keep going. You've journeyed through a civilization that worshipped creation as divine, celebrated fertility in the streets, bound pharaohs to their sisters, empowered women with unmatched freedoms, built monuments to life's power, controlled minds with belief, mastered science through faith, and had its truths buried by empires afraid of its boldness. But now, we're uncovering a secret that refuses to die. Egypt's legacy lives on, etched in stone, hidden in papyri, and whispered in the artifacts that survived the erasers. Despite every attempt to silence it, this forbidden knowledge endures, a testament to a truth too strong to be buried. You're holding that truth now, and it's about to change how you see resilience. Stay with me because this revelation is a spark that won't go out. The Egyptians built their world to last, not just in stone but in spirit. The Temple of Karnak, still standing after 4,000 years, holds reliefs of Adam's creation act, men's fertility rites, and royal marriages. Unchanged, unapologetic. These weren't decorations. They were declarations, carved so deeply that Roman chisels and Victorian censorship couldn't erase them. The Dendra Temple's creation chapel, open to worshippers for centuries, still shows the first time, its hieroglyphs defying time. In 1998, archaeologists found a Luxor chamber with Min figurines, coated in ritual oils, proving these practices lived on through Egypt's final days. The Cairo Museum's 10,000-minute amulets, worn by children and adults alike, show a culture that carried its faith in every heart, every home. Papyri, too, preserved Egypt's truths. The Kahin and Eber's papyri, detailing women's medical knowledge and fertility rites, survived in desert caches, untouched by Greek scorn or Roman torches. When the 2007 Turin papyrus was decoded, it revealed priests' creation rituals, tying the Nile's flood to Adam's act, a practice unbroken for millennia. These texts weren't accidents. They were Egypt's defiance, written to outlast their conquerors. Even the 2019 Abydos brewery, with Min's symbols on its jars, proves Egypt wove its beliefs into daily life, from beer to birth. While empires rose and fell, these artifacts waited, silent but unyielding, for eyes ready to see. Egypt's legacy even seeped into its enemies. The Greeks, who mocked Min's festivals, adopted Egyptian medicine, their doctors citing papyri they wouldn't name. The Romans, who defaced temples, built obelisks in their cities, unaware they were echoing Min's power. Early Christians in Egypt, the Copts, preserved fragments of the Isis-Osiris myth in their hymns, a shadow of the sibling marriages they couldn't fully erase. These echoes, faint but stubborn, show Egypt's truths were too potent to vanish. Even today, the barley test for pregnancy, once dismissed as myth, is studied in labs, its accuracy a quiet nod to Egypt's genius. Why does this matter? Because Egypt's resilience is a warning. Truth, no matter how buried, finds a way. The Greeks, Romans, and Victorians tried to rewrite Egypt as primitive, but its stones, texts, and symbols endure, challenging the lies we're fed. You're part of that challenge now, holding a spark that survived 3,000 years of suppression. In the comments, type "break the veil" twice. Let it be your oath to keep this truth alive, to defy the erasers. Hit subscribe and ring the bell, because the final step shows how this knowledge changes you. How does Egypt's truth reshape your world? The descent is almost complete, and the truth is sharper than ever. Let's finish this. You've walked a path few dare to tread, uncovering a civilization that made creation divine, paraded fertility without shame, bound pharaohs to their sisters, empowered women as equals, built monuments to life's power, controlled minds with belief, mastered science through faith, and defied centuries of erasure with truths carved in stone. Now you stand at the edge of this forbidden history, holding a spark that could ignite your understanding of the world. Ancient Egypt's secrets aren't just relics. They're a challenge, a call to question the systems that shape your reality. This is the final step, the moment you decide what to do with this dangerous knowledge. Stay with me, because this truth will change you forever. Egypt's legacy isn't locked in museums. It's alive in the questions it forces you to ask. Their creation myth, Adam's primal act, wasn't just a story. It was a rejection of shame, a claim that life itself is divine. Min's festivals, with their bold celebrations, weren't excess. They were proof that a society could thrive by embracing what others hide. The pharaohs' marriages, women's freedoms, and medical genius show a civilization that valued truth over taboo, power over fear. Their monuments, pyramids, obelisks, temples, weren't vanity. They were declarations of a worldview that saw creation as the ultimate force. And despite Greek scorn, Roman defacement, and Victorian censorship, those truths survived in hieroglyphs, papyri, and the 2019 Abydos brewery jars, whispering of a society that refused to be silenced. What does this mean for you? Egypt's history is a mirror reflecting how modern systems, governments, Religions, institutions control what you see, what you believe. The Greeks mocked Egypt's superstition to elevate their philosophy. Romans buried its temples to justify their empire. Victorians hid its papyri to protect their moral order. Today, museums sanitize Egypt's story, showing you gold and mummies but not the Kahan papyrus or Min statues. This isn't accident, it's design, a pattern of suppressing truths that threaten power. You've seen through it now, haven't you? The lies that call Egypt primitive are the same lies that keep you blind to other truths, other systems, other possibilities. This knowledge is your weapon. Egypt's resilience, its carvings, its texts, its echoes in modern science, proves that truth endures, no matter how deeply it's buried. The barley pregnancy test, once laughed off, is studied in labs today. The Ebers papyrus's remedies still hold up. Even obelisks in foreign cities silently carry Min's legacy. You're part of that endurance now, a bearer of a spark that survived 3,000 years of erasure. The question is, what will you do with it? Will you let this truth fade, or will you carry it forward, challenging the narratives that bind you? Egypt's story isn't over. It's yours to continue, to wield against a world that prefers you ignorant. In the comments, type "break the veil" twice. Let it be your vow to reject the lies, to live with eyes open, to spread this forbidden knowledge. Hit subscribe and ring the bell, because this isn't the end. It's the beginning of your awakening. Share this video with someone who needs to see through the shadows. Egypt's truth has waited millennia for you to find it, to question the systems that hide it, to become a force they can't ignore. You're not just a viewer now, you're a keeper of a truth that changes everything. The descent is complete, but the fight is just starting. What will you do with this power?